Hello, my YouTube family. I am here. I am not in jail. And I am here to give you an update on my last 6 months of the court proceedings that I have touched on a little bit in my videos, but I wasn't really able to say very much because it was an active and ongoing trial. And now, as of yesterday, it is finally over. Let me preface this by saying that hold on, let me close that cabinet because it's bothering me. Oh my gosh, can you see that I'm totally in the COVID interview phase of wearing a shirt on the top and house shorts on the bottom, or, anywhere shorts. Oh my gosh, and I opened the other one. Shut the front freaking door. The universe just wanted you guys to be able to see that again. Okay, so you've seen me halfway dressed now, right? There we go. Oh gosh. Part of me wants to start over, but you guys know that, I don't cut it or edit anything out. I don't use filters. I record from start to end, and I give you all of me. Oh, my nose is really itchy right now. So, I guess we'll just keep the show rolling, guys. You're welcome. Thank me later. So, okay, back to business. So, let me preface this video with, I want this to be an educational, informative video. I am recording this a day after my jury trial, which was just yesterday, because I wanted to give myself a little time for everything to settle and for me to be able to process everything, and for me not to make an emotionally charged video. I do not want to sit here and complain about how things turned out, because they could have been a lot worse. They did not turn out how I would have loved. They did not turn out, let's just say the truth did not prevail 100%. Okay? And we'll get into why. So yes, I want this to be educational and informative, and to help anybody else who may be going through court proceedings for any reason, or whoever may in the future, just to kind of help you understand the process. A lot of my panic throughout the last 6 months, I think, has come from not knowing what was going to happen at particular court dates along the way, and not really fully understanding the entire effect that each court date had on the entire process. And so when you don't know those things, it's very easy to be anxious or nervous, especially if you are facing some serious charges, I was facing a reckless op with willful and wanton disregard. So it's considered a criminal charge. It is an arrestable and jailable offense. It automatically gives the police probable cause to search and seize your car, which they did. And while it is still only a traffic ticket, considered a criminal ticket because of the severity, I guess. Obviously, there are charges that are a lot worse and a lot less. So this is kind of like a mid-lane example, I guess, if you will, of my experience, and my experience only, with the court system and the process of going through to the end, to an actual jury trial where strangers, civilians, are randomly picked to sit on the jury be presented the information by the prosecutor and the defense attorneys and decide what happens to you in your life. It was ironically close to how it plays out on TV, which I didn't really realize. So I've scribbled down like kind of a couple things and kind of like a structured way to tell the story so that I don't get caught up in everything. And, that. So yeah, I just wanted to preface it with that. And really it's to share how I kept my mental state as positive as I could while also preparing myself for the worst situation that could have happened, which was 6 months in jail, was the top penalty, the highest penalty that I could have received. And since this is a closed case and everything is done now, I've been given permission by my lawyers and the judge, actually, to discuss it at my will. So yeah, let's get started. So, the events that took place in October of 2024. What they said I did was drive 70 miles an hour up High Street from the short north into Ohio State University campus at 2 o'clock in the morning to the point that I almost hit groups of people to where they had to dive or run out of the way. Okay? I passed the cruiser at the initial point of them seeing me, at which point they immediately made a U-turn and started following me up High Street in the northern direction. They did not put on their lights or sirens. They did not notify me that they were following me. They allowed me to drive an entire mile through if you're not from Columbus, Ohio, High Street it's an arts district, the short north, and it goes into OSU campus. So each side of the street is lined with businesses, bars, restaurants. I mean, just everything, okay? It's a very commercialized street with a lot of businesses. I mean, just lining the street. And then, of course, obviously, we're getting into OSU campus. Mind you, this is 2 o'clock in the morning. I was with my daughter. This is right when bars are letting out on campus. Right when people are going to be out and about. Ironically, it wasn't that busy as far as foot traffic is concerned. However, those were the things they said I did. Driving 70 miles an hour and almost hitting people to the point that they saw them dive out of the way. Okay? After the police followed me for 1 mile, trying to catch up with me, on the stand, the cop said multiple times that he was trying to catch up with me, and I was going so fast that he couldn't. They finally caught up to me just south of Lane Avenue and North High Street, at which point they got close enough to read my tags, fall back a little bit, all before activating any lights or sirens to even let me know that I was being watched or followed. After they ran my tags through their computer system, and I'm getting all of this information from copies of the flash drive that I received from my lawyers that contain the dash cam and all of the body cameras of the 6 responding male officers on my daughter and I at 2 o'clock in the morning. 6, 3 different cruisers. The main officer that initially saw me pass him is heard on his body cam microphone saying, "Oh, that must be a 4-5, which represents a stolen car." He made this preemptive decision that I was driving a stolen car based on how fast I was going. When they finally caught up to us a mile later, allowing me to drive so allegedly recklessly through High Street, through campus, through the Short North area, it took 90 seconds, exactly 1.5 minutes for me to travel this mile. Okay? Now, if you apply the mathematical formula to find out the speed of a vehicle, it is that velocity, which would be considered the speed, equals time, distance divided by time. Is that it? I think it's distance divided by time. Speed equals distance divided by time. I do believe. You can check me if you want, but believe me, this was the whole basis of our argument. If you apply this mathematical formula and you insert the 90 seconds, the 1.5 minutes that it took me to travel 1 mile exactly, and these stats, this 1.5 minute is coming from the dash cam video, from the point that I passed the cop to the point that they finally activate their lights and sirens and pull me over a mile later up the street. The average speed, this is mathematical facts. This is not an opinion. This is factual evidence based on their dash cam video. The average speed that I would have had to be driving was 40 miles per hour. Okay? 40 miles per hour. Now, mind you, where I passed the actual officer the first time, the speed limit was 25 miles per hour. The posted speed limit. In the dash cam video, when you see him sitting in the middle of the road waiting to turn, you see my headlights coming, and for 9 seconds he waits as I'm approaching him for me to pass him, for him to turn. So for 9 seconds he waits. Now, in the video, I will say that it does look like I'm going faster than 25 miles per hour. In an email I sent to my lawyer before we even had the discovery or the videos or any timestamps of anything, I told her, I said, I suspect I was going no faster than 40. I have never denied that I was probably going faster than the speed limit. However, was I driving recklessly? Or was I almost hitting people? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the dash cam proves that. In the original report that the initial officers, there were 2 in each cruiser. The initial report, they wrote that I almost hit people on the intersection of 7th and High Street. In the trial, my lawyers brought up the dash cam and they stopped it at exactly 7th and High Street. They even let it run a little bit further. There was absolutely nobody on the street. There were no pedestrians. It's very clear. Kroger's is on the right side of you. There's nobody walking. There's actually no other cars on the street. The entire mile that these cops were trying to catch up to me, there were no cars between both of us. You can see my tail lights in their dash cam video the entire time. They were consistently following me at a pace in order not to catch up to me, to see if I did anything to where they could really get me. And I didn't for a mile, so they figured they might as well take their chances on a stolen car. When they finally activate their license sirens, I don't know why my nose is itching so much. I must have allergies going on, pardon me. When they finally activate their license sirens, I immediately turn my right blinker on and pull to the side of the road. I even remember looking at my daughter and saying, baby, I think we're actually getting pulled over, because I initially thought that they were passing me. Because I knew I wasn't doing anything to the point, at that point, a mile after, where I might have not been paying close enough attention to my speed, where I could have been going possibly 10, 15 miles per hour, again, based on factual mathematical evidence. But at the point that they actually finally activated their lights and sirens, there were people in front of me. I was coming to a stop. I knew. It was just ironic. So I pull over. I stop the car. I put it in park. I put my hands on 10 and 2. Immediately, normally you get pulled over for a traffic stop. You sit there for a few minutes. The cops run in your tags, It's a few minutes before he even comes to your window. Immediately, both cops get out on either side, walk up as they're both shouting at us. Turn off the car! Shut off the car! They were both yelling at us to where we couldn't even articulate what they were saying. So in the dash cam, you see him come up to my driver's door and you see the other one go around to Serena's passenger door. Shut up the car! Shut off the car! After the fact, I hear them in the dash cam as I'm reviewing it saying, you're being arrested for reckless op. The night of, I didn't hear that at all. I had no idea why I was being pulled over. You can see the shock in my face on the body cam video. When the officer physically opens my door from the outside, orders me to get out of the car without asking for ID, without asking what I'm doing, without anything. This is exactly how it happened. He opens my door, shouts at me to get out of the car. And you see me in the video saying, okay. My hands are up as soon as I hear them shouting. Both of our hands are up as soon as I hear them shouting. So as he's walking up to my window, you can see my hands up. And this disturbed look on my face, this bewildered look on my face as to what was going on. And immediately I thought to myself, they think I'm somebody else. They're looking for somebody and they think we're them. The officer physically pulls my arm as I'm getting out of the car and aggressively grabs me to the point that I look up at him and say, hey, what's going on? And he responds, you're going 70 miles up High Street. You almost hit a group of people back there. And I respond, man, come on. There's no way I was going 70 up High Street. He immediately responds, oh, as he's holding me physically and beginning to pat me down physically, he immediately responds, oh, 65 then. My daughter is starting to get anxious and scared. So I tell her, baby, it's okay. As he's passing me off at this point, 4 other responding officers have already arrived at the scene. They tell my daughter respectfully says, do you want me to get out too, sir? They tell my daughter, no, you can stay right there. As these officers are handing me off to one another, after he pats me down and after he pulls my bag off of me, oh, before that, he cuffs me immediately behind my back. And then transfers me over to another officer and tells him to take me to the back of the cruiser, to where I sit for the next 50 minutes. Almost an hour. As I'm being walked to the cruiser, they get my daughter out of the car. And one officer orders her to face this cement wall on the side of the sidewalk and put her hands on it. This is all shown in the dash cam and body cam videos. A few moments later, as my daughter is standing on the side of the road like this, faced towards the wall, while 6 male officers and 3 cruisers are surrounding us, another cop, who is currently going through my personal belongings, taking out of my car, looking for my ID because they didn't ask me for it, he looks at her and says, "You can relax, put your hands down. It's not the 80s. Even though this other officer had just ordered her to put her hands on the wall. Mind you, my daughter's half black. It's not the 80s. But this is still happening. As the second officer is holding me, physically holding me and walking me to the cruiser, they start asking me all personal questions of where I live and my birth date and my social. As I'm sitting in the back of the cruiser being questioned, I have not been Mirandized. At that point, I was under the impression I still had not been told what I was even being pulled over for or arrested for. I had no idea what was going on. And it was terrifying, and it got more terrifying. I'm very respectful and I'm very calm in the videos. I answer their questions and say nothing else aside from, as I'm in the back seat, I hear the main officer again talking to the other 4 responding officers that showed up, saying, "Man, she was flying. We thought it was a stolen car. She had to be going at least 70. And I again say, I deny it in that moment and say, "Man, there's no way I was going 70. And the cop who is questioning me looks at me and he says, hey, here's the deal. It's not a debate." And so I shut up. Because at that moment, I knew that whatever they said, happened is what happened, regardless of what truly happened. And I knew in that moment that they had the power to do whatever they wanted with my daughter and I. And so I said nothing else the entire time, not knowing aside from answering their questions that dealt with who I was specifically. About 10 minutes into me sitting in the back of the cruiser, an officer asks my daughter, as she's still standing on the side of the road, what she has in the car. She says her purse and her jacket. And he said, "Okay, we'll get you those things and you'll be on your way." And you can hear her in the dash cam video saying, "Where's my mom going? Can you please tell me where my mom's going? I'm not going to leave without my mom. I can't leave without my mom. I'm riding with her." They never answer her. They say, "Well, your mom, well, if you would like to wait, you can wait on the public sidewalk." Multiple times throughout the next 40 minutes, they tried to get my daughter to leave the scene. Multiple times. She insisted on staying on the public sidewalk very respectfully, not interfering with anything, not even speaking to me. As they told her to walk down a half a block towards where the cruiser was sitting at, where I was in, as she walked down, another cop said, "Hey, roll her window up," talking about my window in the cruiser, so that we couldn't talk to each other. And I just kept saying, "It's okay, baby. It's okay. Everything is okay. We weren't going 70 miles an hour. It's all right." And I knew that I couldn't fight that night. And so I sat there and I bit the bullet and I was silent. But I knew that I was going to fight it. That night, sitting in the back of that cruiser, I knew that I was going to fight it. Because they were saying that I did things that I did not do. At one point, as my daughter is on the phone contacting a friend to see if they could come pick her up or pick us up or just come to the scene, the officer is heard saying to the other cop, "Yeah, if the mom was acting like the daughter, she'd already be booked." As I'm sitting right in the back seat of this cruiser that he's sitting in the front seat of. So does that mean that we're arresting and putting people in jail for being emotionally distraught or terrified because of a situation they're in? Not being disrespectful, not resisting arrest, not interfering with anything, being completely cooperative on a personal phone call, crying, asking for this person to come, and that she didn't know what was going on. And you can hear her say in the video, "My mom's about to get arrested, about to go to jail for nothing. They're taking her to jail for no reason." And the cop that's sitting in the front of the cruiser, he says, "Oh, here we go with this shit. Everybody's a victim. Nobody does anything." Very sarcastically. And at this point, I still didn't know why they were pulling me over. Aside from them saying I was going 70 and almost hitting people, which I knew was a lie. So why were you pulling me over? Why were you detaining me? Why wasn't I Mirandized? Why didn't you ask for my ID? And about at this point, the other 4 officers start searching my car. Ransacked it. Pulled out everything out of the glove compartment, all over the floor. Went through my entire trunk, went through everything. They stole, and I don't say they confiscated because it wasn't illegal. They stole an entire ounce of cannabis, legal cannabis, that was being transported in a legal way. That was eventually sent to the property room. And because the property room for the police operates under a federal jurisdiction, not a state jurisdiction, and federally, cannabis is still not recreationally legal, even though it is recreational in Ohio, and you're allowed to drive around with it, and I was transporting it the proper way, and I had under the legal amount. They stole it. And it got destroyed, one way or another. Now, the reason that they were able to search and seize my car. They ended up impounding it that night. Didn't even give me my keys back. They left my keys in the car. And I was so overstimulated by the whole thing, I didn't even realize it until we were already gone. Had I not had a partner at my home to let me in my own house, I would have not been able to get in my own home. The keys were still in my car when I picked it up from the impound lot the next day. The way that they were able to legally, well, under the law, search and seize my car and my personal property is because they charged me with a reckless operation, with willful and wanton disregard, which is a misdemeanor 3, considered a criminal traffic violation. That is an arrestable offense. That is a jailable offense. And that gives police immunity under the illegal search and seizure to have probable cause just by them charging me with this, by saying I almost hit people, by saying I was being reckless, by saying I was operating a vehicle with the willful and wanton disregard of others' safety. So they had to say that I almost hit people because that backed their story up. Just wait till we get to the point to where we're in trial and no people are on the intersection. Okay. So, that night, I was only initially charged with that one charge. It was the reckless op with willful and wanton disregard. That was the only charge I got. That was the only charge on my ticket. That was the only charge. Over the next 6 months, these last 6 months, I have been to a court date every single month. 6 court dates now. Each court date all said jury trial on the title of them, but they weren't. The jury trial wasn't until the very last one, yesterday. But at each court date, regardless of whether it was an arraignment, whether it was me entering my not guilty plea, whether it was a motion hearing, the prosecutor, who is the representative of the state, who is the other party in this case, who represents the cops, and who is basically charging me with this. The prosecutor offered a plea deal at each court date to my lawyer and I. There were four plea deals, I believe, that he offered. Because I think the first 2 court dates were just like clerical, if you will, where I don't quite remember exactly which court date he offered this plea, because I had already entered my not guilty. And then we moved into, I had to get represented by a lawyer. And then we moved into the what they call a jury trial on the title, but that really wasn't what it was. So at each date, he offers me a different cop-out. And the first 3 of them were still reckless operations charges. The first two were still the reckless operation with willful and wanton disregard. Now, the penalty that he offered on these is what changed. The first time he offered to do community service for a dismissal of the charge. That just didn't make sense to me. How can you dismiss this charge but still require me to do community service? Isn't dismissing the charge basically admitting that there isn't enough factual evidence to convict me? But yet you're still going to require me to do community service in exchange for a dismissal? I didn't understand how that worked. I don't know. And still, you're still wanting me to say basically, yes, I did this. Yes, I did this. And then you're going to dismiss it, but then I have to do community service? No, because I didn't do this. I didn't do what you're saying I did. The second one he offered, I don't think he gave stipulations. At least I didn't get them, because my lawyer knew that I wanted to stand strong on my principle and I wanted to stand up for myself. And I was not saying I did something regardless of what the penalty you offered me was. I wasn't copping out. At one point he offered a $150 fine to plead guilty, change my plea to a guilty plea, and admit that I did these things, and only give a $150 fine. Plus the points on your license, plus the hike in insurance for admitting to this charge, plus all these other things that factor into the entire situation. So I said no. I said no 4 times. Okay? Speed up to last week. Last week, we were scheduled for a jury selection and trial, exactly a week ago from yesterday. I prepare, I get up, I go in, I sit there for 3 hours, because if you have a jury trial, you have to wait till all the regular people on the docket are finished with all their regular dockets, and then the jury trials come in. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Apparently, you have an option to either be tried by just the judge or go for the entire jury trial, which ends up being 8 jurors total and 2 alternates, but 8 jurors who decide whether you're acquitted or convicted. So, fast forward to last week, and we're there. I wait 3 hours. I get called in. And at that point, the prosecutor informs all of us, my lawyers and the judge included, as of that moment, that the officer who was subpoenaed to be at my jury trial that day was on vacation, conveniently on vacation. Now, this is the interesting part, okay? This is the interesting part. That week, the prosecutor offered us again. The first time that he ever offered a speed violation, okay? Now, that's what this always should have been, y'all. This should have been a speeding traffic stop, okay? I've got a few speeding tickets. I know how those go. That's what this should have been. But they thought that I stole that car, and that's why this didn't go like that. And then they had to create a story to back up them thinking I stole the car and charging me with the reckless op, because that gave them the ability to search my car, to try to get me for anything else, to steal my weed, to do whatever they wanted to take me to jail. Which I truly believe, if my daughter was not so insistent on staying there because they would not tell her what they were doing with me, they wouldn't tell her they were taking me to jail. They weren't telling me that I was going to go be slated. They weren't telling her anything. They just avoided her question, which was weird too. And now as I'm sitting in the back of the cruiser, I'm thinking, what are they about to do with me? I am powerless. They could take me out in the woods, rape me, kill me, torture me. Maybe they're not planning on taking me to jail. Maybe that's why all this is so weird. Maybe this is why they're acting like I'm somebody else. Maybe this is a game to them. Maybe I'm being hunted. Like, the panic really started setting in when I was in that cruiser. Because they were just acting so unreasonable and so suspicious. The cops were acting extremely suspicious. So thank you, Serena, for staying there. For standing on the side of the road, and thank you for waiting for me to be released, because I truly don't think I would have been if you weren't there. You saved me again, girl. My baby. At one point, I was telling her through the window, the closed window, I said, baby, go to my house if you need to. Go to my house if you need to. And she goes, I'm not leaving you. I'm not leaving. And the cop who's up searching my car turns around and says, I fucking heard you, talking to my daughter. And she goes, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to my mom. And there were just so many instances like that, and interactions as she's standing on the side of the road while they're just tearing my life apart. And I still don't understand why at this point. But, so yeah, let me get back on track here. Okay, so there we go. Up to last week, he offers me a speeding. He comes over to my lawyer as she's speaking to me, and he goes, I'll give you an MM speeding. Because now everybody's there. They have 20 jurors in a room waiting to come out for us to start our jury selection. 20 jurors. Both of my lawyers are there prepped. I'm there prepped. The prosecutor is there. The judge is there. We're all, the stenographer, the bailiff, everybody's there wondering where this cop is. Because we can't do anything without him. And he's on vacation. So, the prosecutor offers us a speeding ticket. Now, if they had offered me a speeding ticket, not even that night of, how about even after the arraignment, after I pled not guilty to the reckless op, if they had offered me that in that first month, I probably would have taken that. Because that's what I felt, not what I felt. That's what I should have received, is a speeding charge. You can tell I'm going faster than 25, which doesn't take much. It literally doesn't take much. But I'm still going slow enough for the officer to know that I'm driving a Toyota Camry. My lawyer made that point in trial yesterday. She said, so how fast do you think she was going? Oh, she had to be going at least 70. 65, 70 at least. I turned around and she was gone. And she puts the tape up a little bit. And you hear him saying calling the other responding officers, saying, we got a car going up about 70 miles up High Street. It's going to be a Camry, a Corolla or a Camry, Toyota. And she said, was that your voice we heard in that? He said, yes, it was. She said, so she wasn't going too fast for you to obviously correctly guess the make and model of her car in the dark in the middle of the night. Officer kind of shrugged. Because he knew he got her. He knew she got him. However, this was not the first month that they were offering me a speeding ticket. This traffic stop was not handled like a speeding ticket stop. I had spent almost 6 months of my life with this looming over me, with anxiety and panic associated with this, with I hate labels, but with PTSD triggers. I just said anxiety and panic, and everything's a label nowadays. But with PTSD triggers, when I pass this spot on High Street, when a cop gets behind me, I mean, everybody's a little nervous, but it's been excessive since this situation. And so no, at this point, no. I said, no, I don't want. I fought this long and hard. I have fought this long and hard and spent hundreds of hours preparing my defense. And preparing not even just my defense, my proof, my evidential proof that the story that these guys are telling is not true. And I'm using your videos to prove it to you. So I said, no, to my lawyer. I said, that's what this should have been. Had they given me a speeding ticket in the beginning, I would have paid it, taken accountability, and none of us would have ever been here. None of these thousands of dollars that of tax money would have been spent on this trial lasting 6 months for a simple, what should have been 15 miles, at the most, 15 miles per hour over the speed limit, proven by mathematical equations. And I came this far, and I started this whole thing to stand up for myself and to speak my truth. And I knew the possibilities along the way. At least I thought I knew the possibilities along the way, and we're getting up to that. I thought I knew the possibilities along the way. Oh gosh, I'm already at 46 minutes. I've got to hurry up. Okay. So I said no. We've come this far. We have 20 jurors sitting back here waiting to come in, even though they couldn't. All those jurors had to go home. I went home with doing nothing that week. There's another video, a little snippet of a video from last week about that day. So long story short, I said no. So she said, okay, I'm with you. My lawyers along the whole time, we have a solid case. They can't obviously guarantee anything, but we have a solid case. They felt comfortable in our proof, discrediting the narrative that's been going around this whole situation from the cops. And so we went for it. So I got a date for yesterday, 1 week out. The judge told me last week that each side gets one continuance. Each side gets one continuance throughout the whole process of any court proceeding. So if for some reason you can't make it to a court date or something just comes up to where you just can't go, notify your lawyer, notify the courts, let them know you need to use your one continuance for no reason. You don't have to have any reason. It is granted as an option. I never even used mine throughout this process because we didn't need one. So he said, as I would offer you a continuance, we're going to go ahead and offer them a continuance. But if they do this again next week and the officer doesn't show, the entire case will be dismissed. Unfortunately, the officer showed up yesterday. Okay, now what also happened last week, after I denied or turned down the prosecutor's offer of a speeding ticket, is that he added a lesser charge to my case. And I still don't quite understand oh wow, my battery's getting low. Okay, yeah, we gotta get through the rest of this here. I still don't understand how literally within 1 week of a second jury trial, how he added a lesser charge of just a reckless operation without the willful and wanton disregard, which brings it from an M3 down to an M4. So a little less severe. However, it's still a reckless op charge. It still puts points on my license. It's still going to hike my insurance. It still would go on my record. So somehow, and apparently this is a common thing, my lawyers told me about a case they had recently where the their client, was initially charged with one charge of a domestic violence, I believe. But the prosecutor then added within the course of the court proceedings a lesser charge of disorderly conduct. She got acquitted on the domestic violence charge, but she got guilty on the disorderly conduct. And it wasn't initially charged to her. I don't have any receipt. I don't have any ticket that gives that second charge, lesser charge. I don't have any information, nothing. There's nothing. So I don't really know how that works for legal standpoints, but apparently it's a thing they do. So make sure you know what charges are on the table. Even if in the original event, you only received one charge. I can go right here on my county clerk's thing on the computer and see my original charge. But yet, within a week of my trial, the prosecutor was able to add a lesser charge of still a reckless thought, but without willful and wanton disregard. So, okay, here we go. So we are up to yesterday. I go into court. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty positive. I'm like, you know what? The cop not showing up last week, that just speaks to his character. He was hoping that I would take that speeding ticket charge, which I didn't. You know, he was hoping that this would all just be handled and I would cop out, but I didn't. I stood on my principle. I stood for the truth. And at that point, I just wasn't okay with how much energy and time and trouble they have put me through. For me to take your deal of a speeding ticket at this point, 6 months later? No. So we get to the jury selection process, okay? Here's some good information. You're going to start out with 20 jurors. You're going to end up with 10 total, but 2 of them are considered alternates. So if anything happens to one of the original 8, you will only be judged by 8 people, okay? Each side, what happens is they bring them all in and the jurors are numbered, okay? Each side has an opportunity to ask the group of jurors specific questions to where they can gather information of whether they would be a beneficial juror or not to our side of the case or the prosecutor's side of the case. Now, each side gets 3 strikes for no reason. I'm doing this with both hands, but each side gets 3 strikes for no reason. That means that you can cut a juror out without explaining why. Okay? So, for instance, some of the questions that were asked were, do you have any family members in law enforcement? Okay? And we got a lot of different responses, you know, maybe like a distant cousin here, or, oh yeah, I was raised by cops. I even had one juror in there. He said, I was raised to respect cops. We struck him, okay? Because we were trying to get people that would not have any pre-biases against this particular situation that they may not be able to isolate themselves from to give a accurate and fair judgment on my specific case details, okay? We asked if anybody had been in car wrecks. There was one lady that was in a car wreck, a really bad one, hit by a drunk driver. On that note, let me just mention that I was never asked if I was under any influence. I was never asked anything or even suspected that I was driving drunk or under any type of influence. The cops never asked me. Wouldn't that be one of the first things you ask if somebody is recklessly driving up High Street at a rate of speed, supposedly 70 miles an hour, that a cop car cannot catch up to for over a mile, almost a mile, actually exactly a mile? Wouldn't that be one of the first things? But anyway, it is what it is. So, this woman had gotten hit by a drunk driver. She and her mother spent a month in the hospital. So, being that I didn't hit anybody, nobody was hit, but the potential for her maybe just seeing, she might have not minded if I was going 1 mile over the speed limit, but because of what she had been through, she didn't seem like a very beneficial juror for us to have. Okay, so we got rid of her. Now, there was this really awesome dude. He literally said, I don't think I can be, I feel like I have an issue being a juror on this trial because I was in a similar situation years ago, and I still feel like I got the wrong charge. He was upfront and honest. We really wanted to keep him on my team. However, the prosecutor struck him. He was doing all right, but then he said, oh, I hate the court system. I love cops, but I hate the court system. I really don't like government. I'm pretty radical. And, you know, all of that, they just got him out of there. So it's like a game to where you're trying to keep the people that you think are going to rule in your favor, and the prosecutor is trying to get him out of there. So after that, we ended up with eight total jurors. And I don't know why, but I swear not one of these jurors was less than 70 years old. Now, I love my old people, okay? Don't get me wrong. But I had 2 black women and 6 white men that I guesstimate that they were, I mean, we're talking white-haired great-grandpa style, okay? Now, a couple of people that I did keep on the jury was an engineer who you would think would have mathematician skills, and a doctor who, again, you would think would have a basic knowledge of, you know, being able to understand mathematics and how that proved it was nearly impossible to go 70 miles an hour for that long without hitting somebody or something. And how it proved that my average speed was 40 miles per hour. And if you have any comprehension of speed and time and distance, you're going to know that if my average speed was 40, now that doesn't mean that it was 40 for that entire mile. That means that it could have went up and down, but my mid lane was 40 miles an hour, okay? Mind you, a few blocks after where I passed them, the speed went up to 35, okay? So we're talking between a 5 and a 15 miles per hour difference. Now let's just, for the sake of argument, just say that maybe I was going 50 miles per hour, okay? Even if I was going 50 miles per hour, at this point that I passed the cop, that would mean that for every additional distance that I went, I would have to be slowing down to get to that 40. So apply that to me going 70 miles an hour. If I was going 70 when I passed him, first of all, I would have had to pretty much start hitting my brakes shortly after I passed him to be able to continue to travel that full mile, which is proof from their dash cam in the 90 seconds that I traveled it, which again is proof from their own dash cam. You see what I mean? And then continue driving at a slower rate of speed. If I was going 70 here for the first few seconds, I'd have to be going 10 miles per hour for the remainder of the trip, which just contradicts their other argument of we couldn't catch up with her. Their narration is making it seem like I was driving 70 miles for an entire mile up High Street. And mind you, the cop on the stand said when he was asked how fast he thought he was going, first of all, he didn't know. There's no target, there's no radar, there's no dash cam speed, and he did not pace me. He admitted to never pacing me, meaning like he was following me at a certain speed, looked at his speed, and realized that's what I was going. He guessed. It was his opinion that I was going 70 miles an hour. He guessed. There's no proof. Where the proof is in the mathematics with the average of 40 miles per hour. And understanding that the higher rate of speed that you say I was going here when I passed you means that the slower I had to be going for the rest of that entire mile, honey. I mean, wake up. And they still fucking won. How, wake up, people. My people. I was betting on my people. And they won. The group of people that I almost hit, that's nowhere on the intersection that they wrote in their initial report that night of, about maybe 6-7 more blocks north of that intersection, which the night of, how do you not remember if your whole basis is me hitting this group of people or coming so close that they had to dive out of the way, in the cop's words? How do you not remember exactly where that was? And how do you not know how many people exactly? The cop on the stand, it went from 2 to 4 people. He didn't know. Oh, it was 2. Oh, 5 actually. He said at one point it might have been 5. 2 to 5 people. Now, the only place that the entire dash cam shows anybody walking across the street is 4 people walking across the street in front of the cop car to where he has to be almost on the other side of the yellow line in oncoming traffic because they were walking at a crosswalk, but the light was green. We had green lights all the way up. In the dash cam, you can stop it and you can see them looking back at the cop. If anybody almost hit anybody, bro, it was you traveling up High Street, trying to catch me without your lights or sirens on. And the cop even said, well, I was being cognizant of pedestrians. There were people walking around everywhere. But there weren't. And we proved that in the dash cam. The only people you saw walking were those 4 people. Dang, I forgot what he said. I forgot what I was going to say that he said. Shoot, I lost my whole train of thought right then and there. Dang. Oh, that's one thing he said. I literally have notes right here. Okay, he said, well, you know, that new dash cam system that we have, it kind of gives a fisheye view. So I could see it with my naked eye, but she was 2 or 3 blocks ahead of us. You couldn't see it on the camera. Come on now. Everything else was clear as day. So when he was questioned if these were the people that I almost hit, and my lawyer pressed him on, they don't necessarily look scared. They look like they're looking at your car. And if she was so far ahead in front of you, there would be no way that they were even in the middle of the street when she passed. Their own arguments contradicted their own arguments throughout the entire proceedings, y'all. But it didn't matter. They won on what is called a visual estimation. A visual speed estimation, which I looked it up. This is actually considered a real thing. That cops are supposedly trained in being able to look at a car and tell you how fast it's going within 3 miles. The prosecutor actually said this. Didn't you go through visual estimation training in your police academy? Yes, we did. Yeah, well, you just look at a car and you compare it by how fast it's moving compared to stationary objects on the side of the road. And we had to guess that within a 3 mile per hour. Like, say the car was going 50. If they guessed 54, they didn't get it. They had to guess between 50 and 53 or 47 and 50. Bro, come on. Okay, this is a real thing. And this is what they won their case on. Okay, this is what they actually won their freaking case on. The sound of the car. Okay, there's no speedometer. They couldn't even tell me why there was no speedometer. They said it's an updated system. But then he said it was 2 or 3 years old later in testimony. And they said that the updated dash cam videos don't show how fast you're going. They had no proof. And the burden of proof lays on the prosecutor. The judge even told the jury when we went in, they said that Suzanne Smith is innocent until proven guilty. It is the prosecutor's job to give you proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt. With articulable and factual evidence. These are terminologies that were literally written on the board. Articulable, and factual evidence. We had the articulable and factual evidence. What they had was a cop lying on the stand. What they had was a narrative that didn't add up. The math was not mathing, but they didn't care. My math was mathing. My 40 miles per hour can be proven by any mathematical equation. So, yesterday, I'm at court from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Can you believe that they did not break for lunch for any of those jurors? The jurors were asking for a food break at 1:30 p.m. and the judge says, I don't think this is going to take too long. I'd hate to let you break for lunch for an hour and then come back and we be done. The trial lasted until 6 p.m. No wonder they gave me a freaking guilty charge. You got a room full of hungry people that are somewhere they don't want to be, that are dealing with somebody else's bullshit that they don't want to deal with. You could tell by their body language. One dude was asleep. I literally wrote it on my notepad and handed it because I was taking notes to be able to tell. Me and my two lawyers were taking notes of the jury question and answers to be able to tell who we wanted to keep and who we wanted to strike. And I wrote, well, 13 is very uninterested and he's sleeping most of the time. You know, and then you don't allow them to eat when they requested. The bailiff came in and said, the jurors are asking for lunch at 1:30 p.m. And the judge denied their lunch, misleading them to think that it was only going to take about another hour. And kept them until 6 p.m. with not an option to go get any food anywhere. Water. They kept being told that they could go have water. So, 6 hours, how the actual jury trial process goes after your jury selection. You come in, you have opening statements from both parties. Then you bring in any witnesses, which the only witness that we had was a cop. Was that one cop? Well, actually, that wasn't our witness. That was the prosecuting witness. So that was the only witness for the whole case. He goes on the stand, and then he is examined by both parties and asked questions and interrogated. Okay? Then they have the option to cross-examine, for instance, if they want to go back and question him again after the prosecutor or the other side has done it. Okay? And then you have closing statements. And then, I don't know if this is the natural process because the judge was talking about how nobody had the juror instructions printed out and they had to do it as of right then and there, which is when the jurors could have been freaking eating lunch, but no, they didn't. They left them in the room. I literally am sitting there witnessing all of this in the courtroom. They left them in the room while they waited for somebody else on a different floor somewhere to come in with printed and recently typed. Why don't you have a copy of this where you can just print it out? Information on the jurors. They gave them something about this thick, guys. This thick, and gave them a crash course on how to judge somebody else's life and on what the terminology meant from a legal standpoint. The judge reads all that to them out loud. Then they go into the deliberation room. At this point, you just have to wait. So, I honestly don't know how long I was waiting. I want to say it was roughly right around an hour. It wasn't that long, maybe not even an hour. I walked outside to breathe some fresh air, try to clear my head. I actually have a little snippet of a video then. I'll maybe I'll put that in there here somehow. All I said was I was waiting on deliberation because I couldn't say anything else. So I go back in. We're called to the stand. If you ever have to be a juror, this is kind of good information. So the 8 jurors go into one room. The 2 alternates go into another room. So they're not even included in the discussion. Nobody else is in the room with the jurors. Okay? They have 2 papers, basically. A guilty and a not guilty. Except I had 4 fucking papers because they added that lesser charge of still a reckless act, but not with willful or wanton disregard. Okay? So I had 4 papers of guilty or not guilty. When you go into the room, you're supposed to choose a 4-person, I think they called it. Not a foreman, a 4-person, to kind of mediate the discussion and who ensures that every person's name is on the verdict piece of paper that they decide upon. Okay? So they come back out. Nobody else has seen the pieces of paper yet. They hand it to the bailiff. The bailiff hands it to the judge. You stand up, and your life is written out before you. All right? So I'm standing there in between my lawyers. I'm feeling actually really great about how my lawyers represented me. They did a wonderful job. They spoke articulately. They spoke slow enough for people to understand and comprehend. They proved all the points that we wanted to prove, essentially, that were relevant enough to prove, or not prove. They emphasized the points that we wanted to emphasize as far as like the mathematical equation and the average speed of 40 and explaining how, you know, all that comes into play. And, you know, they posed some questions here, like why couldn't you catch up? You know, isn't this your job, is to catch up to cars, and you couldn't catch up to me over the course of a mile? These are some of my own questions too. Why did you keep trying to get my daughter to leave the scene? Why did you keep trying to get my daughter to leave the scene in the middle of the night when you know she was riding with me? Why did you continue to treat it like it was a stolen car and treat us like we were less than human? Once you figured out I was a licensed driver driving my own car and it wasn't stolen. Like, why didn't you put your lights and sirens on initially? His answer to that was, well, we're not required to. So my judge was like, or my lawyer was like, well, don't you think that would have notified these pedestrians that were walking to let them know that there was a vehicle in front of you traveling very fast and as well as you? And he just said, we're not required to activate our lights and sirens. So I was trying to get up closer to her. But yet you get up close enough to me to read my license plate and fall back again and then come up again and then hit your sirens, man. Come on. Why'd you have to tow my car? Why'd you steal my cannabis, my legal personal property? And the ultimate question, why are we relying on dash cams if they don't friggin' work and they don't see what your naked eye can see? Why are we relying on dash cams to either prove or disprove what happened? When it doesn't matter what is proven or disproved in the dash cam, because in my experience, they still won with no proof whatsoever. And not even just no proof. What they're saying happened is disproved by the dash cam and video cams. So, you know, it is what it is. It's over. Obviously, obviously, did I really say this yet? I don't know. I think my phone is really about to die here. So, I'm standing there. They're reading the verdicts. They obviously have two envelopes, because one was for the reckless op with willful and wanton disregard, and one was for the reckless op without due regard, I think was the actual term. Like, what 8 people that are brought in here against their will even know what these terms mean to be able to control people's lives, to dictate the rest of their life in some situations? You know? I mean, it's crazy. It's kind of crazy. It's wild that this is our justice system. And so, the verdict was, obviously, I was not guilty on the willful and wanton disregard, the original charge, the only charge up until just roughly a week ago. And they found me guilty on the reckless op without due regard. Okay? Is that the way that I wanted it to go? No. Obviously, I wanted to be acquitted of my charge. Obviously, I would have liked to only been charged with the initial charge that I was charged with. I would have liked to not have been added a second charge at the end of this process. You know, like, what? But, it is what it is. There is a lot to be grateful for. There's a lot to be grateful for. I did get sentenced to 30 days in jail, but it was immediately suspended on the basis that for the entire next year, if I get anything as small as a turning signal ticket, definitely a speeding ticket, another reckless op, a DUI, anything like that. If I get even a turning signal ticket, a rolling stop ticket, I go back to that judge's courtroom for the next year. He said, I'll be watching you. if I get any traffic or any other criminal, anything, I go back to him. And I have these 30 days of jail where he could put me right in jail right then and there. If I get a seatbelt ticket, if I'm going 5 miles, if I'm going 1 mile over the speed limit, I go back to him. It's called a PNC reporting. It's not considered probation because I don't have to actually report, even though on my clerk's thing, it says, regardless, it's called PNC. It's basically if I get any other ticket of any kind, I go back to that judge's courtroom and he has the ability to throw me in jail for those 30 days based on this case. Okay? I get points on my license. I'm not sure how many. I think it was 2 to 4. I'm not sure how many, which is going to hike my insurance up. I am very grateful that he decided not to give me an additional fine, which he could have. However, because I was convicted of that lesser charge, and if you're ever convicted, this is how it works. If you go all the way to a jury trial, you are responsible for the court costs and juror fees for bringing them in, which is roughly around $100 per head. Okay? So you got 20 jurors initially. You end up with 8. I'm not sure exactly what they charge you for. If they charge you for those whole 20 jurors, that's $2,000 right there. Not even counting the court costs. You know? And then my mom brought up a point like, are you going to have to pay for those jurors for when the cop didn't show? That's a good question. Because the cop didn't show and they had 20 jurors there. Is that another $2,000? I mean, we're looking at $4,000, $5,000 here, which... And if I don't pay that, then I'm at risk of being back in the court system again. Like, you know, but it is what it is. I don't know the amounts. I don't know the amounts yet. At 6, the judge wanted to go too, and he said, I'll get in touch with your lawyers about the amounts and what the caps are, and they'll be in touch with you. I said, okay, great, wonderful, thanks. So I'm not sure, but I am so grateful that I am not in jail. I'm so grateful that I am not in jail. I am so grateful that I still have a license, a valid license. I didn't get suspended or anything like that. I'm so grateful that we weren't physically harmed in this whole event. It's going to take some time to, work through all of the mental stuff, but that's okay. Actually, it's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay, but I'll do it. Oh yeah, the last note that I had on here. As the judge is sentencing me, he says, and he's explaining how I'll be watched. You know, I'm not going to throw you in jail today, but you're going to be watched for the next year. And I'm not saying even if you come back to my courtroom for something, real small, that you're going to go to jail that day either. But it is a possibility. Like, and after he said that, the prosecutor, I can't remember his exact words, but he laughed and said something about, well, at least you're not in jail. And I said, that's not funny. And my lawyer reiterated it and looked at him and said, that's not funny. And then the judge was like, what's going on? And she said, it's not funny. It's not a laughing matter. And the judge was like, oh, we know that. Are you fucking kidding me, bro? You're like, where's the sportsmanship? Where is the freaking sportsmanship? You just won your game. I mean, you didn't really win. You won halfway because you entered the lesser charge. Because you knew once I didn't take that minor misdemeanor speed that you offered me after 6 months of craziness, that I would probably have been acquitted of that willful and wanton disregard. I probably would have, and I probably wouldn't have any other charges, and I probably would have won totally. But you know what? I still won. Because that is just their opinion of me. That is their opinion of me. The entire case was based on that cop's opinion and lies. And I started this process to stand up for myself and stand up for the truth. And I spoke to my brother just shortly after I got out of court. And he always has such an awesome way of saying things. And part of me kind of felt like after I got out, I said, what is this? I did this to stand up for myself. And what is this teaching me? What is this teaching me not to stand up for myself? Because and my brother said, I'm paraphrasing because he just says things so cool. He said, good for you for taking it to the box and taking it all the way to the end. Because that's the energy that we need in the world right now. We need the energy to stand up for ourselves. We need the energy to stand up for ourselves and to fight for what's right and to fight for the truth, even if we lose according to their terms. That energy is not wasted. There is so much going on in the world today. And I can't even be involved in all of it. I have to keep myself disconnected to a certain point because it's too... because I have to respect my own peace. But there's just a lot going on right now, and he made me feel like the last 6 months weren't wasted because they still got me. They still got me to a certain extent. And that just really helped a lot to know that that's right. The energy that I put forth, every time I turned down their cop-out deals, every time I did anything, the hours and hours and hours of research and reviewing the videos and writing down timestamps. I mean, I have an entire notebook full of notes and documents and everything that I was preparing and just doing as much as I possibly could to show and prove with this evidence that I had. And it's not even on me to show the evidence. That was on the prosecutor's side. That was his job. And I just spent so much time and energy and everything. And, I didn't feel like it was completely wasted at all because I still stood up for myself. But it was disheartening. It was disheartening. And it was almost baffling. It was almost baffling that all 8 people had to unanimously decide from this 90 seconds of a dashcam video. They all had to agree. And when the math is sitting right in front of them, when the admissions of the cop is sitting right in front of him being able to tell I was in a Toyota Camry in the middle of the night in the dark. You can tell that by me passing you at 70 miles an hour, bro. You're telling me that those people that I almost hit are not on your dash cam because it has a fisheye view and your naked eye can see more than it does? Man, come on. So it's just like almost shocking still. But I knew the possibility. I knew the possibilities. And I kept strong. And my lawyers even told me that you stood on your principle to the very end. And not many people do that. They said not many people do that because they make it scary. They make you want to cop out. They make you want to say, okay, fine. Let me just take this deal. And let me say that I did this because I don't know what's going to happen over here. And I had a really solid, strong case with factual evidence. I can imagine people that don't have what I had, But I'm very proud of myself. I want to thank you if you're still listening. I want to thank you if you've been following this story along the last 6 months. Oh, ironically, wow, that's not much longer than my whole YouTube channel has been going on. I think I've got 8 months in on YouTube. And yeah, so this has kind of been overwhelming the entire time I've pretty much been on YouTube. But if you've been following me, if you've given me any encouragement, if you've shared your story, which some of you have, a lot of you have done all of these things, and just, you know, just really helped me get through this and helped me keep my head in a place to where I could fight for myself. You know, because there's been times that you can't. Oh my God, I'm on 2%. Okay, maybe I should just, I said what I needed to say. Thank you so much. Thank you, you know, for being supportive, and thank you for allowing me to share my story with you. And I hope that you know, if you're going through anything like this, similar, you know, chin up, chest out. Chin up, chest out. You know what you did. Maybe you did it and maybe you didn't, but you're the only one that knows. And regardless of what anybody else says, even if it ends up in a conviction, that is their perspective of you, and that is their opinion. And that doesn't change who you are or what really happened. And I'm just finding solace in that, and just, you know, just remembering that I did it to stand up for myself, and that's what I did. Just because they didn't agree with me doesn't mean that I didn't stand up for myself and stand up for the truth and did what was right. So, I love you. Thanks for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.